Expect more investments in agriculture, social welfare and industrialization. Acting President tells Nigerians as he attends Progressive Governors Forum in Kebbi State.
This move and action is expected to give impetus to the military efforts in the Northeast operations.
Service chiefs begin assessment of Operation Lafia Dole as they relocate to Maiduguri in line with presidential directive.
Suspected thugs invade Kogi State House of Assembly, disrupt plenary.
Nigeria itself needs a renovation, and I think the best way to renovate Nigeria is by changing some things in our constitution.
Hear the views of Nigerians, collate the recommendations of reports of several commissions set in place.
On Good Morning Nigeria today, we take another look at matters arising from the ongoing process of amendment to the 1999 Constitution.
In the past 2 days on Good Morning Nigeria, we have been dissecting the attempt to amend the 1999 Constitution, with Nigerians from different backgrounds expressing their views on last week's voting by the two chambers of the National Assembly to tinker with sections of the Constitution.
Quite right, Kyria. Now, the last 2 days have revealed how passionate Nigerians are on many of the items that the federal lawmakers voted on, particularly those that were passed and, of course, those that failed to muster the required two-thirds majority to scale through.
And yes, Kingsley, the keen interest did not only manifest among the guests who we hosted on the program from various locations across the country, but also through the torrents of tweets that poured in through our Twitter handle. So much was also highlighted in some of the newspapers we reviewed.
The reactions indeed have not stopped as Nigerians continue to express divergent views on the constitutional review process and what of course will become of the document once it goes to the State House of Assembly for ratification. Now, will the process, that's to say the amendment process, go the way of past attempts where the State House of Assembly threw out even issues that directly affected them? Or has the situation changed today that will make the houses, that's to say 24 state legislatures, find common ground with the National Assembly?
And only time will tell, Kingsley. But let's remind our viewers that only 24 out of the 33 bills debated upon by the legislators were agreed by both chambers of the National Assembly.
Now, the two chambers disagreed on 9 areas, and these include, of course, 35% affirmative action for women into appointive positions, an appointment of a minister from the Federal Capital Territory, the change of names of some local governments, as well as the matter relating to choice of indigenship by a married woman. Then also that what didn't scale through was the deletion of the acts regarding the National Youth Service Corps as well as the Land Use Act from the Constitution. Now, the issue of the separation of the office of Attorney General of either a state or of the Federation and then the Minister of Justice or a Commissioner for Justice at the state level also fell through.
Now today we shall take another look at the constitution amendment process by engaging a new set of guests from across the country. We have drawn them from the academia, federal and state legislature, labor, as well as the state government. All of them will be sharing their perspectives on the program today.
And of course, we have also decided to go to the streets to sample the views of Nigerians on whether the amendments already passed by the National Assembly are in fact necessary or whether they are sufficient, and what they think about the items in particular that were either passed or rejected. My name is Kingsley Osadola, and as always, it's our delight to welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria. It's a live program on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority.
Wherever you are watching from, we welcome you and promise to make your viewing experience a fruitful one. I am Kirian Umayo, thanking you for joining us this morning. We'll also have the usual segments, including newspaper review, business, sports, arts, and entertainment. Of course, foreign news and weather. But first of all, let's join Ogechi Paul for the morning news. Good morning, Ogechi.
Good morning, Kirian and Kingsley, and good morning, Nigerians.
All right.
Welcome to the news. One of the largest rice mills in Nigeria has been inaugurated in Argungu, Kebbi State. This is seen as a boost to the efforts by government to revolutionize the agricultural sector. Acting President Yemi Osinbajo, who was in Argungu for the inauguration, said the federal government's policy in agriculture is yielding positive results, considering the massive involvement of Nigerians in crop production.
The policy of the federal government that it is the private sector that must be the engine of development. But the private sector being an engine of development is not just the private sector leading growth.
Now, still in KB, the federal government says it's poised to executing projects that have direct bearing on the citizenry through improved investments in agriculture, social welfare and industrialization as part of its economic development plan. Acting Yemi Osinbajo, while speaking at the Progressives Governors Forum held in Borno, Kebbi, restated the APC's government's resolve to fulfilling its promises to all Nigerians.
We take the view that an economic policy that assumes that by promoting free enterprise alone, we can expect that jobs and prosperity will trickle down to the pyramid, to the base where the poorest are. We take the view that that kind of policy will always fail.
Every state, every zone in this country has potential to export something. And I'll list what is there for you to export.
You're complaining you haven't paid salary, or you haven't done this, or you are not doing that. It's because you actually don't have enough money. You're in a trap.
Now, talking politics, plenary sitting in Kogi State House of Assembly was Tuesday disrupted. This followed an invasion of the house by suspected thugs. The Commissioner of Police Kogi State, Wesin Inalego, has ordered full investigation into the incident.
I have done an assessment and I have ordered full-scale investigation into the incident.
Speakers at the second annual conference of Inter-Party Advisory Council have stressed the need for political parties to promote internal democracy and avoid intra- and inter-party conflicts. Issues of party discipline, internal democracy and peaceful coexistence were highlighted at the meeting.
Power wielders hardly voluntarily enlarge the democratic space because they don't want to leave power. That is why I have often opinion that internal party democracy will only come.
I want to assure Nigerians that this commission will continue to approach this responsibility with courage. We will never ever fail Nigerians.
Follow due process in choosing the leadership, in choosing their candidates, in doing things that they are supposed to do. I am sure when such a party gets into power, it will know the right thing to do.
In the meantime, service chiefs are to spend more operational time in the Northeast in line with presidential directives. Director of Defense Information, Major General John Nenche, said this at a news conference at a meeting of the service chiefs and the Chief of Defense Staff, General Abayemi Olonishaki, and Command Headquarters and Operational Lafia Dole in Maiduguri, Borno State.
The service chiefs have commenced the command and control of the operations from the Military Command and Control Center in Maiduguri. This move and action is expected to give impetus to the military efforts in the Northeast operations.
African leaders have been urged to support the ECOWAS trade liberalization scheme and the Continental Free Trade Area in building institutional confidence and integrity in the structural organs of the African Union for the security and development of the continent. Ghana's President Nana Akufo-Addo advocated this at the National Defense College, Abuja, in an assessment of the Africa's economic integration and regional security.
Need bigger and bigger markets to attract the kind of efficiencies in our businesses and enterprises that will be able to develop our region. That's a fundamental basis why we need the integration and the process. We're talking about the future prosperity of our people. And it's becoming clear all over the world that the bigger the groupings, the more successful and profitable they are.
As Nigeria's democratization journey continues with special focus on the 2019 general elections, all relevant institutions have been advised to correct the mistakes of the past in order to strengthen the process. Director General of the Nigerian Television Authority, Yakubu Ibn Mohammed, gave the advice when he hosted the Institute for Legal Studies in Abuja.
We work seriously with you, to make sure that our democracy thrives. The legislative arm of government has to be strengthened. It has to be understood.
We can put our heads together to ensure that we move towards this election in a manner that by the end of the time, the end of the election, it will be peaceful, orderly, and transparent and credible.
But that's it on the news segment of Good Morning Nigeria, which continues after the break with Kingsley and Kieran.
Nigerians. Suicide bombers are not spirits. They are not ghosts. They are human beings like you and me. They live amongst us. They are your neighbors. They are your friends today, but terrorists tomorrow. So you must know your neighbor now. Security begins with you and me. Know your neighbor. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me.
If you see something, say something. Nigeria, unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Many Nigerian children cannot afford to go to school because they live in poverty. Instead of enjoying education and its benefits, they get involved in street trading to help themselves and their families survive. The Rogers Foundation is a humanitarian organization which currently caters for over 15,000 less privileged children in various schools all over Nigeria. The foundation has a goal to take thousands of less privileged children off the streets and provide them with free quality education from secondary school to the university as part of her Vision 2030. Admission forms are free and available online and at all Rogers Foundation colleges at Owerri, Jos, Ibadan, Kano, Enugu, Sokoto, Yola, Bauchi, Zaria and Oboko. For further details, visit www.rochersfoundation.org. Rogers Foundation. We educate to empower.
Achievers always believe in 100%. Breakfast isn't complete without Chivita 100% fruit juice. Made from real natural fruits with no added sugar. So to be at your best, start every day the Chivita 100% way. With 100% quality, 100% commitment, 100% goodness, 100% achievement. Start your day the Chivita 100% way.
To business now. The Government Integrated Financial Management Information System is to form the bedrock of 2018 budget preparation. Details on these and more with Kolo Mohammed on Business News.
Business News. The federal government of Nigeria will be using the Government Integrated Financial Management Information GIFMIS for the preparation of 2018 budget. The Director General Budget Office of the Federation, Mr. Ben Akabweze, confirmed this in Abuja. The GIFMIS is an information technology-based system for budget management and accounting that is being implemented by the federal government to improve public expenditure management processes, enhance greater accountability and transparency across the ministries, agencies and departments.
It will certainly help all the other economic agents to plan better when there is greater predictability surrounding the government's own budget, the own process, the timing in particular.
It is designed to make use of modern information and communication technologies to help the government plan and use its financial resources more efficiently and effectively. The foreign exchange reserve rose to an almost 3-month high. The dollar reserves grew 1.62% from a month earlier. The foreign reserve rose by 7 billion in 6 months to hit 31 billion at the end of April of this year. The increase has restored the total to a level last seen in August 2015. This, analysts say, can conveniently pay the nation's import bill for over 1 year. And the Nigerian Stock Exchange closed Tuesday on a positive note to reverse a downward trend from previous day. Let's now see how trading went down on Tuesday. That's business news. Good Morning Nigeria continues shortly.
All right, thank you very much there, Kolo Mohammed, for the business package on Good Morning Nigeria. Next, we'll go to the front pages of some of today's newspapers to take a look at the stories they have on the front pages.
Our newspaper reviewer, Bayo Toyebi, is here in the studio, as always, to, of course, do the analysis of the headlines we have in some of our national dailies. Bayo, you're welcome.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Good morning, Kinsley. And good morning, Nigeria.
Yeah, my pleasure to have you with us this morning. Let's begin by taking a look at the front page of the Punch newspaper, which is the first that we are taking a look at. Punch, straight away, you can see above the nameplate of Punch newspaper, 55% of VAT revenue generated from Lagos. And that's according to Finance Minister Kemi Adeosun. Details of the story can be found inside. No ID number, no passport from 2018. That's according to the NIS, as Immigration Service. No ID number, no passport from 2018. Now, there's an earpiece beside the nameplate of the Punch newspaper. Foreign negotiators involved in bids to free abducted lecturers and others. Of course, the lecturers are those from the University of Maiduguri who were abducted by Boko Haram elements a little over a week ago, and that's according to the federal government. Details of the story can be found on page 7. The lead story for the Punch comes with a double-decker headline: Policemen and others stole all movable items in my house, says Jonathan. Of course, the house, of course, is located in the Gwarimpa area of the federal capital city. Now, Lagos CJ grants amnesty to 80 underage inmates. That's in greater detail on page 18. Now, also there on the front page, Oshibajo redeploys ICPC chair. Ekpo Unta, that's not the NTA, Ekpo Unta. Details can be found inside. And NUC gets 240 applications for new universities. 240 applications for new universities. And then Obasanjo, Atiku and others exit affected us, says PDP. Hoodlums invade Kogi Assembly, attack lawmakers and strip member. Generator fumes kill family of 4 in Kogi. Dangote sells 86 billion naira cement stake to foreign investors.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of stories, on the Punch newspaper this morning. But now on Blueprint, that's where we go next. And below the nameplate, we have thugs invade Kogi Assembly, beat up members, The details is on page 6. And then just below that, breastfeeding can boost economies and save lives, says the UN. That story is on page 15. Now, road crashes claim 15 lives daily between January and June this year, says MBS. The story is on page 17. And then INEC has joker for 2019 polls, says Yakubu. Now, that story is on page 6. Oshibajo sets up presidential panel on assets recovery on page 5 of the blueprint. And now the main headline, blueprint, APC undemocratic is a bullying party, says Atiku, the former vice president of this country. Then Rocha Sokorocha replied, too early to judge us. The full details is on page 6 of blueprint. Of course, below that you have a photograph of the former Vice President Atiku Abubakar presenting the Inter-Party Advisory Council Award of Excellence to the Bauchi State Governor Alhaji Muhammad Abubakar during the IPAC 2017 second annual conference in Abuja just yesterday. And then at the foot of the blueprint, why Senate rejected power devolution to states. Saraki, page 16 has that report. Vayo.
Yes, let's start with the Senate President's explanation. The Senate President has indicated that when the Senate resumes in September, there's every likelihood that they will revisit the issue of devolution of powers. He attributed the rejection to heightened suspicion among Nigerians, particularly picked up by a prevalence of hate speech that has dominated the nation. Also, the leader of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, has indicated that the legislature, when they resume in September, will take a second look. His own explanation was that because all the amendments that were sought, 9 of them were bundled together, that was why members, because of their discomfiture, rejected them. He said what ought to have been done was that the 9 items ought to have been voted upon on their individual merit, and therefore he has assured that when the House resumes, it will be looked at. No national ID card number, no passport, and that is with effect from the 1st of January 2018. This is indicated by the Director General, Controller General of the Nigerian Immigration Service. It says those applying for renewal will have to present their national identity card number provided by the NIMC. Those for fresh passport too will do the same, and those residing outside Nigeria will first of all have the NIMC identity card and number before they will now get their passport. And the reasons are not far-fetched. It says this is to ensure that data are not duplicated. Now, if you are applying for passport, all you're required to do, provide them your national ID card number, and they will fetch your biometric data from the National Identity Management Commission.
Now, let me ask you, this before we move on. What does hate speech, what does it have to do with the devolution of powers?
Well, you agree that there has been instances about hate notices, about separatism, and this has heightened intemperate language across board, across regions, all right? And because of that, suspicion among Nigerians have risen. And therefore, people felt that instead of looking at these controversial issues, it's better to allow the sleeping dogs lie. And that was why the Senate President was alluding to that.
The sleeping dog may wake up again.
The atmosphere of hate speech has heightened mutual suspicion. Naturally, in any polity, there has to be debate, give and take of issues when they are properly discussed. But when the atmosphere is not conducive, you recall that the American ambassador to Nigeria has also opined that such proposals should be discussed in an atmosphere of mutual respect and within democratic principles, not that of hate and threats. So it's in line with the democratic principles.
Okay.
All right, I'm just wondering, just before I take the Daily Sun newspaper and the headlines that they have on the front page, they're saying no national ID number, no passport. How many?
From January 2018.
Yeah, 2018 is just about 5 months away from now. How many national ID cards have been produced and issued to persons who applied for them?
Well,
that's not for you to answer. Yes, that's for NIMSI to answer.
It's a big challenge. But then what that entails is that if you need to have your passport, your first port of call will now have to be going to the National Identity Management Council.
But you have no control. You have no control over the processing of your national ID by NIMSI. In other words, the time NIMSI takes to process your national ID is not
determined.
Yes.
When else you can
and we have seen, there have been stories about, long delays in processing national ID cards. I think there should be proper liaison between the Immigration Service and the Identity Management Commission. Now, let's take the front page of Daily Sun. Daily Sun newspaper, the lead story is still on the mayhem in the Kogi House of Assembly. Thugs beat lawmaker black and blue in Kogi. Attack assembly, the speaker and others escape death. That's on page 6. And then also below the photograph on the front page there is a Arewa youths relax quit order to Igbo. And it has a rider say Biafrans should go while Igbo Nigerians remain. This was at a meeting with Kalu. That's on page 12. APC governors beg Nigerians and opposition jeers. That's on page 12. Service chiefs relocate to Borno and Boko Haram vows to fight on as Oshibajo pledges to release 113 Chibok girls. Will win 30 states in 2019, PDP boasts. That's on page 12.
All right, now on these day newspapers for today, above the nameplate, we have a manufacturing index expands for 4th consecutive month as oil reserves, gain. So that's on page 9 of these day newspapers. And again, banks to extend 9 mobile loan pending new investors on page 12. Below the nameplate, we have the main headline: in fighting corruption, don't focus on loot recovery alone, says Saraki, the Senate president. And then stops collecting pension from Kwara. Well, that's a rider there. Now, beside the photograph there, where we have the acting president, Emir Shebajo, the governor of Kebbi State, and Senator Atiku Bagudu, there is battle-ready military chiefs arrive Maiduguri to tackle Boko Haram. That's on page 10. And then below that, Tinubu says, I have not purchased any new airplane. That's on page 9. Well, quickly before we go to bio, let's get the Sporting Sun. Let's get to the Sporting Sun and give you some of the stories on the Sporting Sun this morning. I hope our viewers can see that on the Sporting Sun. And then the lead story there is Ihan Acho completes Leicester Medicals to open 12 billion naira deal. That's of course our own Ihan Acho, who was with the Manchester City. Now moving over to Leicester City. Now Enyama, former national goalkeeper, out for 3 months. Perhaps he may have some injuries. And then Sanchez returns to Arsenal. That's a guy that has been keenly contested for in the past couple of weeks.
That's Alexis Sanchez.
Alexis Sanchez, yes.
He's a workaholic.
Yeah, he returns to Arsenal. Perhaps the man Wenger doesn't want to do well with him. And that are the major stories on the Sporting Sun this morning. And let's return to Bayo now.
Yes, we're talking about the Premier League. My interest is in the Nigerian League. This is what matters to me most. But meanwhile, let's quickly look at the development relating to the Kogi State House of Assembly. Policemen, civil defense officers, as well as officers of the Department of State were helpless when hundreds of thugs invaded Kogi State House of Assembly. A member was reported to have been beaten to a state of coma and taken away. Meanwhile, the Commissioner of Police for Kogi State, Nelson Inalego, has ordered investigation into it. Governor Yahaya Bello has also strongly condemned that he will not allow Kogi State to be taken over by political thugs. He has ordered investigation, and people found culpable will have to face the wrath of the law. Meanwhile, there are speculations still ongoing about the arrival of Mr. President. Yesterday, the speculation was that staff in the villa had been put on standby, it was speculation. Today, a paper is speculating that the presidential aircraft has left London, and to which a BBC correspondent had to ask one of the media aides about the veracity of the truth of that matter. And the presidential aide says categorically, Mr. Femi Adesina says, we don't have information about that departure. But it goes to show the extent to which Nigerians are very anxious to welcome him back, Mr. President.
All right, Bayo, just before we wrap up the newspaper review segment, the story on page 4 of the Daily Sun newspaper. The headline is IGP, that is Inspector General of Police, unveils device to track stolen cows. Now, this has to do with getting on top of cattle rustling in the country, and of course, this is coming from the Implementation Committee on Cattle Rustling in Nigeria, which has come up with this device for tracking cattle in the country. We hope that the owners and the headers will patronize the device once it becomes available widely. But another point, Kirian and Bayo, has to do with a story that Kirian read from the front page of this day newspaper. It's a late story, actually. Say the Senate President Saraki, the writer there, says stops collecting pension from Kwara. If you recall, this is an issue that we have discussed on this program on a number of occasions. Well, he says that he's written to the Kwara state government, to stop paying his pension. I then gave, an advice that perhaps what is necessary is for the respective state legislatures to reenact or otherwise amend their laws to say a beneficiary of the pension arrangement, particularly for governors and deputy governors, shall not be entitled to the pension once he or she has a concurrent appointment from which he or she is also drawing emoluments.
But there's a subsisting tradition. On no account should any individual have double drawals on the consolidated account, either for the federal or state. So,
but it's not just in Kwara. I think it's also happening in all states of the federation.
But in fairness, there are many governors who are so entitled but have never been paid. So we need to be very careful not to lump all of them together as being culpable of taking this double allowance.
All right, Bayo Tebe, that's the most we can take today. We'd like to thank you for being here. See you tomorrow. It's Good Morning Nigeria, still live on the network service of Africa's largest television network, Nigerian Television Authority. We'll take a short break. When we return, matters arising still from the ongoing process of amending the 1999 Constitution for a fourth time.
Hear the call of change. Stand up, Nigeria. Change is here and it's going to stay. Change begins with you. Oh yeah, make we go. Go to so let the change begin from within. Look at you, Ogerula. Change begins with you and me. Change begins with me. Change begins with me. Change begins with me.
Calm down. The movie I'm downloading is on 95%. It's still on. Eh?
Introducing Airtel Unlimited Data Plans. Get Unlimited 10 for 10,000 Naira. Get Unlimited 15 for 15,000 Naira. And Unlimited 20 for 20,000 Naira. Unlimited data. Unlimited you.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
Happier by Chivita. Burst of refreshment.
House of Chi.
All right, you're welcome back. Now it's time for us to go into our discussion segment, which has to do with the amendment to the 1999 Constitution. But of course, before we proceed with the introduction of our guests for today's discussion segment, let's take this vox pop as NTA went to the streets to sample the views of a cross-section of Nigerians.
I think our legislatures are really playing. Maybe I just feel that they should go back to their constituents, then really get, because they are actually representing the people. So if they're actually representing Nigerians, they should be able to communicate what Nigerians are actually seeking for. Because me, I just feel that they're just there for their own benefit and all that. So I just feel that they should go back to their constituents, get their own view about what they want them to do for the people, and then go back or there should be a kind of meeting with maybe the masses that they are representing, so that they will actually know what the people are actually seeking for, not just their own point of view.
In fact, I just praise them. It's good.
I used to tell my friends that Nigeria itself needs a renovation. And I think the best way to renovate Nigeria is by changing some things in our constitution.
What we need is the construction of 1999 Constitution, hear the views of Nigerians, collate the recommendations of reports of several commissions set in place by government over the years, and bring in the 1960 Constitution, which of course is the main independent constitution that made Nigeria giant of Africa, and amend 1960 Constitution in view of current development.
The Constitution of Nigeria needs to be reviewed so that we can move forward. That Constitution needs to be reviewed so that we can have an update of what we really need for us to move forward. Like the devolution bill is very good. When you decentralize power, states will have their powers and will be able to take care of their resources, even their citizens. They will take care of them, and things will work for Nigeria, and there will be progress. We have been stagnant for so many years because of this whole constitution. So we need to review it. So it's a right step in the right direction.
Not too young to run. In fact, that's the aspiration of every young person. If you look at the statistics, I think the youth constitute about 70% of people who have voting rights in the country. And everybody's happy. Everybody's happy. All the leaders we have today started at that age.
The recent one that has been stepped down by the National Assembly, that is the devolution of power. I think the National Assembly should do well by revisiting that clause or that restructuring of the thing.
Actually, it's a necessary step, but they are not doing it the way we expected them to do it.
All right, now you had the views there of a cross-section of Nigerians, and as we indicated while we were introducing to this program, we did say that we've had the torrents of reactions by way of tweets coming in from our viewers. Now, our Twitter handle is still open today, that's to say at NTA GMN, so we can still send in your reactions. But we have guests already with us to discuss matters arising from the ongoing amendment of the Constitution. Again, we'd like to welcome to our studios. He was here with us last week, the Chief Whip of the House of Representatives, and he was also a member of the Constitutional Review Committee, Honorable Ado Doguwa. Honorable Doguwa, pleasure to have you join us on the program this morning.
Thank you so much. Good morning, Nigerians. I'm glad to be part of this program once again.
And from our Just Studio, we're being joined by former Speaker of the Plateau State House of Assembly, Right Honorable Titus Alams. Thank you, sir, for joining us this morning for Good Morning Nigeria.
You're welcome.
All right, and from our Lagos studio, we have Senator Olorunimbe Mamora, former Speaker of the 4th Lagos State House of Assembly and one-time Senator of the Federal Republic. He joins us from our Lagos studio, as I said earlier on. Welcome, sir, to Good Morning Nigeria.
Very much. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right. We have all heard from Nigerians expressing their views in that Vox Pop that Kingsley earlier introduced. Let us react to some of the comments made by these Nigerians. Let's begin with Honorable Ado Dogowa.
You mean the comments?
The comments by Nigerians on the Vox Pop we've just watched.
I think going by the comments I've just listened by some Nigerians out there, quite encouraging. At least from the onset, you can see the zeal and the desire amongst Nigerians that yes, this ritual of really reviewing the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is really a right step in the right direction, especially when you look at the global democratic process that is going on around the globe. And we really need to revisit some of these laws as contained in our supreme document that guides the operation of our own democracy. And I want to believe most of the expressions made by Nigerian public, especially our constituents, are issues that really border on what they expect the National Assembly to actually do. For instance, the desirability of issues like the devolution of powers, which members of the public are still yearning and seeking maybe a kind of review. But what they may not have taken note of is the fact that the exercise as far as the National Assembly is concerned is for now over. But as the National Assembly or the House of Representatives, of course in relation to the Senate, the process of lawmaking is always an ongoing process. At any time, any member could just come on the floor of the House and desire to make a bill that desire or expect to alter any part of the Constitution. But that, of course, will now go through a very long and longer process to do. Unlike a situation whereby we have created or established a specialized or a special committee to undertake that process, and a special time is also allocated to that particular committee to go ahead and do that. It would have been much earlier if it had been taken. Right at the constitutional review process, but the idea remains the same. The fact is that the issue might be well desirable. To most members, it is also desirable. But the unfortunate thing is that maybe it has come at a very wrong time. That is my opinion. A wrong time because looking at the nature of our socio-political process at the moment, is like the polity is so tensed. Nigerians, unfortunately, are under mutual suspicion. And so many other issues that, of course, give this issue of devolution of power, I think, a disadvantaged position. Not because it was not desirable, not, of course, it would not take us a little further, but there is that fear among Nigerians because we are operating virtually a federal system of government where you have different federating units from different religious, social, and tribal backgrounds. So a situation whereby you see so much agitation from the periphery agitating to have more powers, then certainly people who are concerned with our federal existence would not likely to really yield into such agitations. That was part of the problems this issue of devolution of powers encountered.
Now, one of the respondents did mention something in connection with the 1960 Constitution, the Independence Constitution. Like he is talking about bringing in that, to the 1999 Constitution and see how there could be, you can square that up and get something out of that. Does it make sense?
Of course, that could make sense, but unfortunately, he has forgotten to take note of the fact that the constitutional history of this country has been a progressive one. The 1960 Constitution, like you might have said, or he might have observed, was a constitution in the past. And obviously, whether you like it or not, it's like subsequent other attempts to review or come up with a new document that you call the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is like a graduation from the beginning to maybe successive democratic periods. I want to believe going back to that will take us back to square one. I don't think that will serve Nigeria well, because you look at that tendency, that not patriotic, that kind of chauvinistic commitment of Nigerians, that issue of nepotism, people trying to look at themselves first before they look at the center. I think what we have on ground, taking into consideration the socio-political circumstances, I want to believe is the best for Nigeria at the moment.
All right, Honorable Ado Dogowa, thank you very much. Of course, we'll return to you. You are right here with us in the Abuja studios. Let's go over now to Lagos. You saw him a moment ago on the screen. Distinguished Senator Lauren Nube Mamora, former Speaker of the Lagos House of Assembly. Again, our delight to have you join us on Good Morning Nigeria. There are a raft of amendments that we have seen, 24 of them, and then, of course, the details are out, and extensive. But, of course, some persons have also argued that the devil, of course, you will find in the details. Right here with us in the studios, Adodogowa Honorable has indicated that perhaps one of the reasons why the clamor for devolution of powers did not sail through at this time by way of amendment of the Constitution has to do with the fact that the lawmakers at the federal level needed to manage ongoing or current agitations and the current tensions that you have in the system. So rather than confronting the problem, they said, look, okay, let's keep it in abeyance. Beginning from that particular issue of devolution of powers, what are your thoughts on the current fourth attempt at amending the Constitution?
Well, thank you very much. Yes, I quite agree that democracy itself is a process. It's not, a destination. So you will always have to look at it and continue to amend until you get what you think is best in the circumstance. Well, first, let me commend the National Assembly as a whole, both the Senate and the House of Representatives, for what they've been able to do so far, even though, well, you had diverse reactions of the people. And in the front burner at the moment is the issue of devolution of powers, which essentially has to do with the nature of our federalism, which to all intents and purposes people believe largely that we are still more or less unitary, or what some people again call a kind of cooperative federalism, not really giving the necessary powers to the states and reducing the powers at the center. Where if you look at the exclusive list of the exclusive legislative list, where you have 68 items, and the concurrent, where you have 30 items, and a situation where when the laws are made in the states and they are in conflict with the laws of the federal, the laws of the state will give way. Be that as it may, yes, I think Honorable Dogowa, yes, one of the reasons that I also believe might have been responsible for not the devolution of powers issue not scaling through the way that people really expected. Yes, probably the heightened nature of things within the policy, within the polity rather, where you now have agitations maybe more than before, these things, coming up. But then, that might just be one of the reasons. But I think, again, another reason possibly is the fact that these issues were lumped together. There are so many items that, are involved in this devolution of powers. Maybe next time around, of course, that's the benefit of experience and hindsight. You recall that between 2003 and 2007, you recall that the issue of tenure elongation, so to speak, aborted the entire process, because then we had a whole gamut of issues lumped together, as opposed to what is being done now. In fact, that happened between 2007 and 2011, where various items being put forward for amendment were crafted into separate bills so that you can handle each one separately. So in the same manner, I think from the benefit of experience, the next time around, the National Assembly will probably consider separating those items even under devolution of powers. So the items, as you read, you pick them as, individual bills. So each one can pass on its own, unlike what happened, this last experience or attempt, the devolution of powers, you had so many items there, the pensions, the issue of parks, the issue of stamp duties and all that. But if each of these items had been crafted in separate bills, then probably it would have been much easier for better understanding and treating each item on its own merit rather than taking them together. So again, I think it's something for consideration by the National Assembly.
Well, all right. Thank you very much, Senator Mamora. We'll return to you in just a moment. But let's let you know that our guest in Enugu is seated, and there she is, Professor Grace Achara, a constitutional lawyer. Grace Achara, actually, yeah, Race Achara, Professor Race Achara in our Enugu, in our Enugu Network Center. Race, you're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
I apologize for my lateness. I'm terribly sorry.
Thank you for
just before you pop the question, actually RACE is an acronym, for his 5 names.
5 names. Okay, so just shorten it to RACE.
That's right.
All right, thank you. Perhaps before the end of the show, we'd like to know the full details of your names for the sake of next time. All right, we shall come to you. But before that, let's go to Jos, where we have Honorable Titus Alarms. Honorable Alarms, you have listened to Ado Dogua and of course Mamora in Lagos, and the key issue here has to do with the devolution of powers that the National Assembly did not handle, perhaps giving some good reasons for that. But wouldn't you think that it should have been more appropriate to tackle the issue headlong than just keeping it at abeyance, because invariably the case will resurface again? What's your take on that? And of course you can also make comment on the discussion this morning, which centers on the constitutional amendment.
Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you. The issue of keeping it for another day, but we all know that the amendment of the Constitution is a continuous process. We must also know that as a nation, it's a growing democracy, and some of these things are bound to happen. But I'm sure if it will constitute a problem, if the National Assembly feels it will constitute a problem for now, we keep it. But one thing the observers made and those that have spoke on the issue is very clear. I am sure Nigerians were not properly given the orientation. And what Nigerians are trying to say is that I know in the 7th Assembly, attempt was made to amend the Constitution, and our lawmakers at the national level went round, synthesized people, spoke to people, and people now told them what exactly they wanted them to do on the amendment of the Constitution. And I'm sure what we're having now, I don't know whether it is because of the time frame, because I know that that time we had in the 7th Assembly when I was Speaker, and we worked on it. But this time around, that was not done. And that is why most Nigerians, most of us in Nigeria, we don't take time to go back to look at history. But on the issue of this devolution of power is something very, 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 very sensitive in this country. Even if that is done, I'm sure the National Assembly is afraid that even if you now say most of this, you give the states more power, you give the states the ability to do this, even when you come back to the states, you will get the states with our own problem. You will get religion playing its part, you will get tribes playing its part, and I feel what is worth doing is worth doing well. Let's synthesize Nigerians, let's educate Nigerians on the need, on why we must amend the Constitution, and let's get the yearnings of Nigerians. Why are Nigerians saying that the power at the center be decentralized and we have it at the state level? Let's talk to Nigerians and find out from them. When we find out from them and we devolve this power to the states, it will work. So what I will still say is that for the National Assembly to again engage the people, because we are making these laws for our people, and we feel as we make the laws, Nigerians must also partake in making the laws like they did in the 7th Assembly. So I feel that should the Nigerians be involved in this process. Although they're involved, but most of the people at our local governments at the level, you know, we're having it on television now. Not most people watch this on the social media. At the rural area, it is when their representative goes to their level and tells them this is what we want to do, that they pick, that they now know that this is what we want to do, and they will contribute and they will have it. But delaying it, maybe as we delay, it could be a blessing. They say time is a healer, and we will be growing in the democratic setup. And I believe that time when it comes, it will work for Nigeria. But I want to say that it is very important. Like somebody said in the discussion, in the exclusive list, you see the items on the exclusive list, and you see the items on the concurrent list. That is really impeding development at the state level. So it is very important we look at that, since that is the key issue that Nigerians are talking about. It's good we look at it for the devolution of power so that democracy can grow in this country.
All right, Honorable Titus Alams, thank you very much. Again, we'll come back to you, former Speaker of the Plateau House of Assembly. By the way, if I were a viewer at home and I saw your name, your caption on the screen, my first question would be whether you are in any way related to the late Alamesera of Bayelsa, because it was for short called Alams. Is there any relationship, or this is... Can't hear you almost immediately, but we'll come back to you and give you the other opportunity, Honorable Titus Alams. This is from Plateau, not from Bayelsa. But let's bring in now Professor Ray Sachara in our Enugu Network studios to get his comments. Professor Ray Sachara, let's get your thoughts, initial thoughts, as it were, on the ongoing attempt at fourth alteration of the Constitution. There are a number of issues on the plate, but is there a sense in which the non-passage of the relevant bills with regard to devolution of powers has tended to overshadow otherwise bright spots in some of the other amendments passed?
Well, in answering your question, I should like to first preface it with saying that we've perhaps been too severe in the knocks we have been given to the National Assembly. In some areas, they have responded to proposals we made 7 years ago, and we should praise them for that. For example, this issue of putting everything, you know, the 33 proposed amendments into separate bills. If you recall, in the very first attempt they made sometime in 2010, 7 years ago, they bunched up the 41 proposed amendments in one bill. And that had severe consequences when there was a problem with the bill number 21, you know, and some other bills where there was not a clear majority from the states, you know, in approving what they had done. We had actually, before they did this, been privileged to give a lecture to the legal officers of the National Assembly in Abuja, and there I had explained to them that there was a danger in pursuing this method of lumping everything together, because if there's a refusal in one, it would necessarily mean that the entire bill had been lost. So they've learned from that and they've done it now, so I should give them kudos for that. But there's a difficulty in that they have not also followed some of the proposals we made at that time 7 years ago. For example, the issue of publicity. And this segues nicely to the question you're asking. You know, the issue of lack of sufficient publicity to give people adequate time to study the details of the proposals they intend to make before passing it would have helped them guard against some of the things slight mistakes, unnecessary errors, like duplications. From what I saw, you know, there are some bills, in the proposed bills, that just merely duplicated what had previously been proposed. You know, for example, the proposal for alteration of those acts, pushing them away from the Constitution, Land Use Act, National Security Agencies Act, you know, Public Complaints Commission Act, etc., etc., Youth Service Corps Act, pushing them out from the Constitution and making them to be amenable to easy amendments as ordinary statutes. There were, you see a particular bill where they stated the proposed amendment of movement of all those four, and then you see individual bills where they singled them out and talked about the same movement. That's on an unnecessary duplication. There are several such things, but we would have been in a position to really address them properly if there had been sufficient publicity. In the same way, this lack of publicity is what gives me some difficulty in addressing the question of devolution, because apart from the summary, sometimes confusing, sometimes ambiguous summaries that we get in the press, there's not available to me a clear statement of what was involved in the proposed devolution. So at this time, what we are doing is at best, guesswork as to what was rejected and what was proposed before it was rejected. So stating it in those general terms, that's where we have difficulties in knowing exactly what was proposed, and therefore whether we are to criticize the rejection or not. But all in all, I would think that it was a mistake, having regard to the spirit of the moment, the agitations in the country. This issue of devolution, even though I don't know if it went as far as one would have proposed that it should go, but the fact that there are things that we're talking about remove some of these excessive powers that have been given to the center, to the states, and to the lower down units. For you to just, as it were, take it with such levity and throw it off, I'm not quite sure that it showed excessive wisdom on the part of the National Assembly, the people who dissented in the National Assembly. So at that point, those are the initial comments I would like to make. And then just to finish it up, the issue I've also noticed in this amendment exercise, the proposed alteration exercise, is that perhaps we have also not fully understood the proposals one has been repeatedly making. I made this during Clement Ebre's attempt at change, in a lecture I delivered at Nnamdi Azikiwe University in 2002. I've repeated it. We need a lean constitution. We need first to understand the principles. The constitution is not a place where you put everything that hurts you as a nation. You only put the things which you feel that you don't want to leave in the hands of the people you have given the power to make laws. We have competent people in the National Assembly who can make these laws for us. We have systems in which to check their excesses if they don't make these laws properly for us. We don't need a big volume of work and call it our constitution. We need a lean constitution, one that addresses only those things they cannot make, or those things we don't want to leave only in their hands, things that we don't intend to be changed often. These are the only things we put in the main constitution. But if you look at the proposal, you see that it seems that the people who have proposed this have still not understood this principle, and it is an unfortunate one, and which we ought to correct. So those are my initial feelings on the
all right.
issue.
And in fact, it does seem that Senator Mamara is actually concurring with some of the points that you have raised. And it does seem also that technicalities in the process of this amendment is making the entire thing, cumbersome. But returning to you, to what extent is the current amendment, different from the previous one? So for you to round, some of, your thought on this. In Enugu with Professor Achara. I want him to do some clarifications with respect to what extent that is the current constitutional amendment different from the previous ones.
The point I'm asking, you will need to be more specific, because we've had previous proposed amendments, previous actual amendments. The first one we had in 2010 was stumped by the failure of the National Assembly to follow the principle of presentment to the President, so that the President would indicate his assent or refusal. It also failed because they bumped everything together, the 41 proposals together. So they eventually corrected that. We had clearly explained to them, because they were relying on the American system where you don't need to present it to the President after, but we indicated to them that our constitution is phrased in a totally different way. So the requirement of a presentment is inherent in it, since it is done by way of an act of the National Assembly. When you get the assent of the states, is merely something added to it. But after you've gotten the assent of the states to the proposals, it is still an act of the National Assembly, and therefore subject to all the requirements for an act of the National Assembly, which means you need to send it over to the President. This wasn't done initially. Abakoba SAN went to court against that after my lecture, and the Federal High Court agreed with him, and the National Assembly eventually went and ate their words and then presented the amendments to the President. So for those ones, with that 2011 eventual presentment is when the thing actually took effect. So the 2010 actions had been overtaken by their failure. So that first alteration of 2011, as signed into law by President Jonathan in 2011, constitutes the first alteration act, which had about 42 or 41 eventually amendments. There's a second one that dealt with INEC and electoral matters, and there was a third one which came much later, but still in 2011, that dealt with alterations to the National Industrial Court. Now, the one we have now is as the plan seems to be, because I heard the Deputy Senate President, my classmate and friend, my Hidado friend, Senator Ike, distinguished Senator Ike Nwachukwu, at our reunion in University of Nigeria Enugu campus, the law faculty in 2009, he indicated that there was a plan to make incremental amendments. And the beauty of it is that the length of his stay as chairman of the constitutional amendment body has helped a lot, because there's now some institutional memory in that place, and it has helped to give us a better get up in this current process. But you will see that what they have been doing is to avoid the pitfall where, in getting President Obasanjo's move to get a third term, lost us the expenses we had gone into and the efforts we had gone into in making about 102 or 120 proposals of change. We lost them because of just one amendment, one clause. They have now decided that it should be incremental. So what they have done now is incremental. The 41 have been dealt with. The National Industrial Court has been dealt with. So they are now bringing new things. So it's difficult at this time to talk about what's the change, because they're just gradually bringing in new processes and changing them. If there's a problem we have, the problem is in prioritization. My problem with what has happened now is that they did not seem to deal with the most important things. And the way to have done it is to first discuss it before they make these things. Before they get into the passage and all that, they should have given us a proposal, make the public know what they have in place, and then we'll make suggestions, and then they'll now go and vote. But what they have done is putting the cart before the horse, and that is why we are still met with some of these difficulties that we are seeing currently. So that is my worry with this. The new things they've done here, there are some of them that are very, very useful, and, if you start listening them one after the other, I could go through. I don't know how much time we have, but from the press reports I had there are some very good things they've put in, but there are some things also that we don't know what they have in mind there. If people had been, for example, given an indication of the problem we are faced with, having things like Land Use Act still in the Constitution.
All right, Professor Ray Sachara, thank you very much. We'll return to you, and then, of course, we'll be dealing with some of those bright spots in the amendment, as you have indicated, and some other guests have equally indicated. Just 2 points, though. Earlier, you were referring to Senator Ike Nwachukwu. I think it's Senator Ekweremadu. Of course, Senator Ike Nwachukwu was there earlier in the Senate, retired general, and Ekweremadu, you say, was your friend formerly. But I hope, as classmates, you guys can, reunite. That's on a jocular platform. But we also know that one of the bills passed by the National Assembly has to do with dispensing with the assent of the president to constitutional amendments. So that as soon as you have the concurrence of 2/3 of the number of states we have, then it becomes an amendment to the Constitution. But Honorable Adodogo, right here with us here in the Abuja studios, a number of points have been raised.
Yes.
And when we began this discussion on Monday, our guest also talked about the process. The fact that there seemed to have been, again, has been emphasized now, little information, let's not little information, insufficient sensitization of the populace. Yes, you've had your retreat. Yes, you called for public hearing, but the specifics of the drafts, as it were, did not appear to have been there in the public domain. To say, look, let people, make their contributions, or that lawmakers did not appear to have returned to their various constituents to get direction on how to vote on particular matters. Otherwise, we might not have some of these lingering, shall we say, disagreement, as it were, with what the National Assembly has done with regard to some of the bills that have been passed. What are your thoughts?
I think, like I've always said, you see, a process like this, especially when you come to the issue of legislation, is like you also have set rules and regulations. There are rules to play by. So actually you have just no way whatsoever to now shortchange these rules. The process has already predetermined the way we go about it. The retreat which we have taken for members that are also members of the Constitutional Review Committee, the creation of a platform for members of the public to also come and positively impact on the process. It has all been accorded. All these things have been accorded to the rightful quarters. So the fact is that we have set rules that we cannot circumvent. A situation whereby we have finished our retreats, conducted public hearings, went to the extent of addressing the press, rounding all the process, rounding it up at the time, we do not have on the set down rules. We do not have a process or a situation whereby we will have to get back to the public again. We feel and we presume the platform we have created for the public hearing was enough for members of the Nigerian population, Nigerian public, to really contribute their quota, and we feel they have done that very significantly. So the idea remains that as long as we have our set rules to carry along the process, we cannot circumvent, we cannot create any other platform for us to go back to the members of the public. And when you are talking about the issue of really getting back to our electorates, I want to believe members of the present 8th National Assembly are very sensitive and responsive members, which have gotten in touch with the opinion leaders of their constituencies, traditional leaders, even ulamas and clerics were consulted, even after the creation of the public hearing platform. I want to say in a nutshell, and for the purposes of clarification, even the issue of devolution of power, that members of the Nigerian public still seem to have some issues that we need to go and look at it again, was not as if it was done exclusively. It was not an exclusive business of the National Assembly too, because we have consulted professionals, leaders of thought in various communities and various states of the Federation. We have done all we are supposed to have done, and we now at the end of the day found the situation completely inconvenient, inconsistent to let that come or to let that go. The idea remains that even the authors the initial authors of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria had their own wisdom, which we still concur with them, that in a situation like now, where you have some part of the countries even agitating to break out, you have also what we call the almighty governors in their states. And you're talking of maybe power is centered so much, is invested so much in the center. And when you now take away some of these powers as they were, or as they are now, back to governors or to state governments, it's like you're also making the tail to wag the head. And that issue of having too much power in the hands of the states through their state governors will also become an issue. So the National Assembly found it very convenient that we should now go on the same page with the authors of the initial authors, our forefathers, who authored the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, so that the unity of the federation, the unity of the system, and also the sovereignty of the Nigerian people vested under a federal system of government can also be upheld and protected.
Well, Honorable Adogowa, you just made a point now that perhaps, again, I mean, I know that you cast only one vote and your colleagues and the legislature also cast your respective votes.
Yes.
If it was the case that, all right, devolution of powers did not seem appropriate at this time because governors, on the one hand, are already too powerful. How would you then reconcile that with the fact that the legislature, that's the National Assembly, passed a bill to strengthen the state houses of assembly, which ordinarily should act as a check on the powers of the governor by granting them financial autonomy? How would you also reconcile that with the fact that there was also a bill passed with regard to local governments, which had been emasculated by the governors? So if you had tackled the issue of the emasculation of the state houses of assembly and the legislature, what then was the fear with the oligarchs that some of the governors are?
There was not much of a fear per se, but what I want to still clearly say is that, for instance, if you talk of the powers we have granted to the State Houses Assembly in terms of their financial autonomy, that is in line with what we have already achieved at the national level. We have achieved that. The National Assembly is operating as an independent institution, and for you to really strengthen parliamentary democracy, you certainly have to go down and grant the same powers to the State House Assembly. And we don't think that would be an impediment to our democratic process. It is rather a process of strengthening parliamentary democracy down to the state level. And we also found time to believe that giving autonomy to local government administration will, on the other hand, also create an opportunity for our democratic system to now take development, effective development, to the doorstep of the people. There has been this agitation that the fact that the federal government at the center has so much to bear on it, and the answer remains that we have to now really strengthen and also create an administrative capacity in the local government administration, so that yes, what the federal government cannot be able to, because of the cumbersome nature of its responsibilities at the center, be able to do, then the local government system administration can now also effectively address those issues. If you look at them, they are not contradictory. In my opinion, it's like you are now trying to strike a balance. A situation when you deny one thing, then you grant the other. That was just what we did. And we believe this is in line with proper democracy, and also strengthening and promotion and also consolidation of the parliamentary democracy at all levels.
Well, we've had it all, the oligarchs, at the state level, the governors. But there seem to be some underlying issues, yes, concerning this inability of the National Assembly to pass the issue of devolution of powers. We're beginning to know that there are more reasons, to that. Now, Senator Mamora in Lagos, when Professor Achara in Enugu, was making his postulations, you were nodding, your head, perhaps in agreement with some of the points that he raised, and there are also issues raised by Ado Dogoa, which has to do with the lack of adequate information and, of course, poor articulation of what's supposed to be the issues inherent in passing a bill on devolution of powers. Now, with your experience at the Senate and also at the state level as a member of the House of Assembly years back, what's your take on that?
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, I was nodding to some of the submissions of the Prof from Enugu, particularly with respect to you know, the caution not to turn the Constitution into what a former colleague of mine called, you know, the village minutes book. You see, because if you continue to change the Constitution, one can understand the circumstance because, you know, it's in going along with the reality of the moment. Reality in the sense that the 1999 Constitution, which was bequeathed to us by the military, is already bulky. And to the extent that the National Assembly is not a body to create constitution. The powers vested in National Assembly presently by the current constitution is the power of alteration or amendment, not the power to write a new constitution. The power to write a new constitution is usually vested in a constituent assembly. So that's why I said, well, the reality of what we have on ground is that we must continue to do incremental amendment, you know, as the situation arises. So it's in a continuous basis. Having said that, it's also important to say that until and unless a national consensus is built, if you don't have a national consensus, it will be difficult to achieve what the generality of Nigerians want in the aspect of devolution of powers, because what you will have may be discordant tunes. But when you're able to build a national consensus, then you'll be able to say this is the way to go. Again, some of the submissions of Prof, which I was nodding to, I had made such submissions in my opening remarks as well, regarding the fact of benefit of hindsight or experience. I told you that when I was in the Senate of 2003 to 2007, and of course 2007 to 2011, we lumped these things together, and we were not able, that is between 2003 and 2007, to pass because of the failure of this tenure elongation issue. So you always have that benefit of hindsight and experience to build upon. But again, there are some aspects, you know, of these proposals which I still have my anxieties or concerns about. Take, for example, the issue of immunity. Immunity for lawmakers with respect to statements, utterances, or whatever made in the course of performing their duty, you know, is already guaranteed under the legislative house's powers and privileges, Cap 208, Laws of Federation, 1990. I hope you got that right. So you start to wonder, why do you need to put that again in the Constitution? I think it's not necessary. Section 308 of the Constitution that has given immunity, which is even still being you know, challenged as to why it is really necessary to grant immunity to governors, to deputy governors, to president, vice president. That is still being queried. So, if and the danger there is that it might be misconstrued that lawmakers are trying to, you know, confer immunity on themselves, which is not really the case for those who understand. So I was just feeling that, well, maybe that was superfluous in nature. Then I also have concerns regarding some of these issues when they get to the State House of Assembly, because the powers of the state governors. I remember that we passed, when I was in Senate, we passed this first line charge to State House of Assembly. But, you know, passing these things to the State House of Assembly, we discovered that we could not get 24, you know, which is 2/3, to make it, you know, a law. Then I also agree with the National Assembly on this, that no need for presidential assent. I agree, because if you have to override the veto of Mr. President, you need 2/3. So if 2/3 of the members have succeeded in passing that bill, then it seems to me, in my own opinion, that there should be no need for presidential assent again.
All right. Distinguished Senator Mamora, thank you very much. Just before we go on a short break and then take the tweets that we have by way of reactions from our viewers, what is the utility of the financial autonomy now granted by the amendment passed by the National Assembly to state houses of assembly? Let us assume that the state houses of assembly were to act in their own interest at this time, and then they have a 2/3 concurrence to that particular amendment. What is the inherent benefit? Will that truly guarantee the independence of that tier of government, and then also ensure that the powers, considerable powers of governance over the legislature are whittled down?
Okay, yes. You see, one of the strangleholds, so to speak, that the governors have over most of these state assemblies is this financial matter, which does not, at the end of the day, allow the legislature to really do the things that they feel they need to do in the interest of the people, because they are representatives of the people. And I want to believe that if this thing passes this time around with the State House of Assembly, because they are supposed to benefit from it, and benefit not in terms of themselves, but in terms of the generality of the people that they represent. So it will allow them to do all the things, or at least as much as the funds available can allow them to do. Take, for example, oversight. One of the things hampering oversight function is the inability to raise funds to really go out. If at times you need to employ the services of consultants who will be able to look at the nitty-gritty of budgetary provisions and all that, and be able to go ahead. Again, the Constitution provides for the State Assembly Service Commission, which is supposed to be set up by the State Assembly as an institution, a separate arm of government. But I'm not sure how many of the state assemblies in the out of 36 states that really have State Assembly Service Commission. Again, when there is that financial autonomy, it will assist them in setting up this kind of body that will help them in their own legislative assignment. And of course, if you look at the area of capacity building as well, one of the things hampering capacity building for the State House of Assembly is non-availability of funds for them to build capacity, to organize seminars, workshops, to build the capacity of not just the members, but even the staff of the State House of Assembly. So I do hope that it will be passed for the benefit of the growth of democratic governance, particularly as it affects the legislature. Don't forget that the legislature is the most important and the first arm in a democracy. So it's important to always ensure that the capacity of the members and the staff is ensured.
All right, thank you so much. Well spoken, Senator Mamora, who's been talking to us from Lagos Network Center. And now we'd like to return to Honorable Alams in Jos. Honorable Alams, you've listened to other contributors this morning on Good Morning Nigeria, and there's some specific issues have actually been raised, and we'd like you to react to some of that. But to add to what I'd like you to respond to is the issue of scrapping of the State Independent Electoral Commission and the introduction of state police, which did not scale through. Now, how can the weaknesses of these agencies be dealt with?
Thank you. The issue, let me first of all comment on the issue of the autonomy, financial autonomy granted the state legislature, the legislative arm at the state level. The state houses of assembly, without this financial autonomy, I want to assure you that nothing will happen in such assemblies. One thing you do as a representative of your people, and as somebody that makes laws to your people and somebody that oversights, you need financial autonomy to operate. But sometimes, because you depend on the governor for everything, you go, even when you want to have oversight, you go to the governor to beg, cap in hand, and that has really reduced the performance of the houses of assembly. Let me also get it very clear that if you get to some of these houses of assembly and you see how they operate, you will baffled whether it is an arm of government. This is because everything you get back to the governor, and that is why you cannot even make laws that will benefit the people, because any little thing you move to him, you write a memo to the executive, because you want to do this, you cannot oversight like it is rightly said. And even when you are given what we call the overhead, sometimes it does not come at the right time, and that keeps impeding, and that keeps stopping you from doing what is expected of you as a House of Assembly. And I feel giving the House of Assembly financial autonomy, that will help the State Assembly to function properly, And we, in the 7th Assembly, that came, and some states assembly okayed it, and some were not able to do it because, like my other colleague at the other level, at the other end, Network Center said, because the governors had influence in what was happening, and that was not done. And I'm sure the houses of assembly now, knowing that they are supposed to perform their duties, they will now, the opportunity is theirs now. I'm sure they will make it work so that they will operate properly at the state level. Now, on the issue of the State Independent Electoral Commission we're talking about, we all know that that would have been, if we have had the INEC conducting elections at this level, that would have been better for us. Why? This is because at the state level, they are appointed by the governor, and even when they are appointed by the governor, they are not allowed to do the work the way they should do it. I don't know if elections actually are conducted, but even if they are conducted, they are not allowed to do it the way people will benefit from it. And we feel, though it has not scaled through, and I'm sure the houses of assembly that make these laws at the local level will definitely work on these issues, so that even when next time we talk about it, but we can strengthen them. The houses of assembly can work on the laws, and if they work on the laws properly, it can strengthen PLASEC, like we have in Plateau State, or the State Independent Electoral Commission. But it would have been better, the laws can make them move. And I still want to say, even you look at the local government setting, look at what happens. The autonomy of the state legislature and the financial autonomy of the local government will also help. Because if you look at it, we are talking about elections at the local government. People tell you that even if you conduct elections, because it's a state independent electoral commission, will just give results. whether you like it or not, will be there, and you can see it in other states. Even when you do it, the ruling power has it, the party in power has it all over. And that now makes people get afraid. And what I will suggest is that the houses of assembly should have this autonomy, and when they have this autonomy, they will also be able to make laws, proper laws, that will guide what we will be doing, what they will be doing as a state assembly. And my stake here is that we must also, that like the local government, let me give you an example, even because the laws are not well and the elections are not properly conducted, when you come to the local government, and you get some very funny things. You have what we call a management committee at local level. In some states, I know of states that are from 2015 to date, you have had about 3 different sets of people as administrators in local governments, and that is not giving us a good insight. And people still say that even when the elections are conducted 10 times, 20 times, that we will still have the day. On the state police, I am a very strong supporter of the state police, but you know, we said it already, that because of the problems we had already with the devolution of power, and that again, even with the state police, we cannot have that for now. But I believe if we have the state police, it will help. It will help in, you can see the vigilante we have. Even at what we have in Borno State today, the civilian JTF, you see what they are doing. We also have the vigilante groups that are working very well. And when we synthesize and we work on the state police properly, it will help us. And you see now, with the crisis we have in this country, you bring a policeman from a place that does not even know the culture of the people, he does not even know the terrain of the people, he does not even know the language they speak, he does not even understand their language. And that impedes as he works in that environment. But when you have a police that is a state police, and that knows the environment, that knows what happens in that environment, it would be better for the states and for this country.
All right, Honorable Titus Alams, thank you very much. And then, of course, the other guests stay with us at Enugu, Lagos, and here in the Abuja studios. Gentlemen, we are taking a short break now. When we return, we'll take the tweets, and then we'll continue with the conversation.
I feel alive, so alive, when I'm with my best friends, indulging my tea, exotic, taste of paradise, irresistible, everywhere I go, tea, exotic. Nothing makes my drink more than when the mixer is delightful, tea, exotic. And after a long day, I want to relax with the taste of my tea, exotic. Yeah, sinking and get lost, taste of relaxation, too good not to share, the taste of affection. Oh, say I love the taste of tea, exotic. I love the taste of tea, exotic. Love the taste of tea, exotic. Nothing like the taste of my tea, exotic. I love the taste of tea, exotic. Nothing like the taste of my tea, exotic.
Oh, I love the taste.
Chi Exotic Nectar. I love the taste.
Yes, we are all guilty of this. We judge people based on ethnic group.
My father only took a look at your picture, not pictures, so, and shouted, hey, see this tribal mark.
We judge people based on the area they reside.
Samson comes from a place where kidnapping is rampant.
We judge people before we have a chance to know them closely.
Have you gone to dog place to look for your dog? Unbelievable.
Stereotypes. Another rib-cracking episode of your #1 television comedy series. Professor John Bull explores and explodes this terrible societal ill. Keep a date with Professor John Bull series and laugh like never before.
Where you come from, sir? Come from Umeu. Hey! Umeu! What's up? Why the shout? Those people sabi thief goat. Over and out.
Brought to you by Glow.
The largest data network. Glow Unlimited.
You are still watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Now, back to Abuja here. Our guests are still in their different locations. We shall return to them one after the other to conclude this particular edition of the program. For now, let's tell you what Nigerians have been saying by way of tweets. Kingsley.
Festus Akimboyewa has this tweet. Thanks to NTA for creating the platform for informed analysis of the 1999 Constitutional Amendment.
Now, Moses Olusegun says, we don't need an amendment. We need a people-oriented constitution.
And Sonny Michael Amakoji, many of us are of the opinion that the ongoing review of the constitution is unnecessary when the 2014 Confab report is more reliable.
And then Dennis Philip says the legislature, or judiciary and the executive should look critically at the constitution before amendment.
And then we have this from ITZ Pearl. That's it says, as citizens, it is said, when you are above 18, you have the right to vote and be voted for. But that's not happening because of our corrupt leaders.
And now you missed out Badamosi H. Adamu, who says that if really the lawmakers are sincere on the constitution amendment, then the old marginalization of the FCT natives have come to an end.
Well, Frank Chinoso tweets, the amendment is a welcome development. The constitution should be amended in a way that it favors everyone and not biased.
Now, Abu Hanifa, says, to your guest in Abuja, he says, what meaningful contribution has the present constitution or constitutional authority have made compared to 1963?
Habila Kwara Zakshi tweets, the amendment without public hearing? No wonder some lawmakers abstain from voting.
All right, now from Donatus Abo, he says the National Assembly should be disbanded and regions should organize representatives that should be at the federal lawmaking.
Talkback Mike tweets, now let's check. All the bills that favored them, that's to say the National Assembly members, passed through, but the ones that favored Nigerians were rejected. So, for whom are they making the constitutional amendment?
And Lieutenant Faith says, my question is, what gave rise to these agitations, which has dissuaded the National Assembly from supporting devolution of powers to states?
All right, those are the tweets that we're taking in the meantime. Let's go very quickly to Enugu. Professor Reyes Achara, as you indicated earlier, and as some persons have also said, there are some bright spots in the amendments as passed by the National Assembly. Can you give an indication of what you consider to be heartwarming with regard to the bills that have been passed, specific to the good ones?
Well, maybe I would need to get through the list here. But before I do that, I just want to indicate something about the somewhat paternalistic attitude and avuncular belief that the people at the federal level, know it better, are more honest or more responsible than the people at the state level. And that is why they have refused to pass the provision for devolution. They feel that people may secede, having regard to the temperature in the country now, if they allow devolution, allowing police, state police, there will be war everywhere. But this seems irrational. We make these elections from the same common pots. The people who are elected and come to the Senate and House of Representatives belong to villages in our local communities. The councillors and the local government and states houses of assembly were also elected from the same general pot of Nigerians. So what gives them the impression that they are more responsible, they will think about the problems that will face Nigeria, war and whatever, more because they are in the House of Representatives or Senate than in the lower houses? I think this is the attitude we really need to change. There's this paternalistic, almost arrogant belief that if you are the center, you know better than those at the lower houses. This is wrong. And it should not ever be advanced as a reason for refusing something. Give us a better reason. If there's a reason, you give us. But don't, it's almost insulting to Nigerians to say that. I needed to point that out because there's also this same spirit of failure to understand what Constitution is about and what amendments are required therefore. You see, we are talking about removing things, these over-bloated documents. The National Assembly is starting to remove the things in the same breath that they are removing the statutes, Public Complaints Commission, NSA Act, and other such things from the Constitution. In the same process, in this same proposed fourth alteration, while using one hand to remove these ones, to reduce the thing we have been complaining about, they're using the other hand to pack the place full of new things that should be left at statutory level. You have, for example, we are complaining about National Industrial Court. How that thing went through, I don't know. Nigeria does some very strange things. This thing is supposed to be a tribunal to deal with matters in a specialized way, where trade unionists will come in, not necessarily professional judges. It's supposed to move things fast. You've now turned it into a court with all the same technicalities that will bog down the speed of hearing matters there. And because of this, you now have in this current exercise, Investment and Security Tribunal, a specialized thing that should be a tribunal. It's not professional judges. You're not putting it into our constitution. That's the proposal is amendment number 26. There's so many strange things going on here. It's the worrisome thing. Then look at the issue of prioritization, because you have not fully conceptualized what you're to do. If you conceptualize it properly, that we have problems here. You've talked about the possibility of cessation and all that. People are hankering after some things. How can you solve the problem? If you give a little thought to it, you will see that, for example, the issue where you've talked about in amendment number 23, indigenship of wife, whether they should take it from her birthplace or her place of marriage. You see, you're looking at a constitutional amendment as a question of, we politicians, when do we get appointed, elected, things that concern us. You're not looking at the depth of it, the foundational thing. You could use this method to deal with the real problem, which would then solve the problem of the wives and solve the problem of husbands, male, female, children, by dealing with the real core issue that is raising this dust about cessation and division. You deal with the issue of settler indigent problem. If you address that problem, you've addressed every other thing.
All right, thank you very much, Professor Achara. We do actually apologize for stopping you at this point, because the energy in you this morning is quite huge, and we appreciate that so much. But time is not on our side, and at this point, we'd like to thank you immensely for being part of our show this morning. You've made a very incisive contribution this morning. Thank you again for coming, Professor Achara. All right, and back to Abuja here. Let's talk to Honorable Ado Dogowa. You are against state police. As Achara said, he said, what makes people think you are more responsible than the people at the state level who elected you to the National Assembly? Briefly.
Just like you said, let me take it from this from this perspective. The fact remains that the Constitution has given that powers to the National Assembly to have the opening to amend it. And let me also make that clarification, as in the perspective submitted by the professor in Enugu. The idea or the position we took consistently was not about undermining the capacity of any Nigerian at whatever level to perform or exercise his own duties. But the idea was informed from the background of the fact that we have all anchored or coincided and agreed with the position of the authors of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And their fundamental position is to keep the unity and sovereignty of this country intact. If you look at the process, like from the first subject of discussion, the issue of devolution. Devolution of power is contemplating to give more powers down to the periphery. The issue of state policing also is not as if state policing could not help. But if you look at the benefits offered by that process, it's like the issue of really not giving too much powers to the state, especially the almighty governors that we have kept on saying, will also play a very, very, very negative effect on the democratic process. Look at also the issue of state INECs. So if you now look at them, devolution of power, state policing, issue of independent state electoral commissions. This has now, this put together will let you know that the National Assembly had acted in an informed manner. If you look at the consistency in the perspective of really trying to concentrate power in the center, because you are operating a system where you have different federating units who also are informed by tribal, religious, and cultural differences. The moment you give up that window for them, then it's going to be very accidental for our own democratic
Honorable Adodogowa, thank you very much. As you very well know, there's no way we can possibly exhaust all of the issues. We appreciate, your comments the same way we appreciate.
The point is just one. Just that we are not doing that undermining anybody's capacity anywhere.
We have to
grow. A situation like our own, we will never allow the country has to work the head.
The country has to grow.
That's right. We cannot grow in a devastating manner. We cannot grow where political and democratic interests will now pervade our unity and sovereignty of the country.
Thank you very much.
But you still have the agitation. Section 44, subsection 3 of the Constitution is still there with regard to ownership and control over mineral resources. You still have aspects of section 162, but these are points, of course, that will be discussed going forward. The National Assembly has done its bit, and then we await what will happen at the state level, and then, of course, the president, who will either assent or withhold his assent. Honorable Adodogowa, Chief Whip, no, you passed the bill. That bill has to be assented to in the first instance.
We have to sign up to the
Honorable Adodogowa, Chief Whip.
Thank you very much, Adodogowa, for coming.
We have to whip you into line now.
If you allow the land use
line now. Now we go back to our Lagos Network Studios.
We don't have time for them to.
Senator Mamora from our Lagos Network Studios. You can hear, you can feel and hear. Senator Mamora, thank you. Always a delight, of course. These are the kind of things we expected in the process of seeking to amend the Constitution. I'm sure if they had engaged, Nigerians at this level, perhaps the outcome might have been different. Senator Mamora, thank you for being with us on the program this morning. Okay. I'd like to appreciate the alarms from Plateau. It's Right Honorable Titus Alams, former Speaker of Plateau House of Assembly. Thank you very much for being with us on the program this morning. Earlier, we sent out Professor Ray Sachera from our Enugu Network Center. Gentlemen, delight having you on the program. Let's go very quickly to our sports desk to take one of our companion segments.
World Football ruling body FIFA has released appointments of officials for the match day 3 and 4 of the 2018 FIFA World Cup qualifying race African Series, with Egyptian top official Gerd Grisha and Gambian Papa Gassama to take charge of the two clash between Nigeria's Super Eagles and the indomitable Lions of Cameroon. Grisha has been designated to be at the center for the game between the reigning African champions and the three-time African champions in Uyo on Friday, 1st September 2017. Meanwhile, players released by coach Salisu Yusuf to play matchday 32 games of the Nigerian Professional Football League for their clubs have returned to the camp in Kano ahead of next week's trip to Cotonou. In athletics, Nigerian-born Utua Inahoro joined the exclusive league of dark athletes that have surpassed the 8,000 points barrier after setting a personal best of 8,028 wides, competing at the Trop Cup in Düsseldorf, Germany. In tennis, Maria Sharapova beat Jennifer Brady 6-1, 4-6, 6-0 as she returned from injury at Stamford's Bank of the West Classic. Sharapova, who returned in April, had been out with a tight problem since 16th May.
And it's won in style.
And now to the Meteorological Agency for weather outlook for the rest of the day.
Hello, I'm Paul Ugba, and thank you for joining us on the weather forecast. Analysis of our weather model reveal futures which suggest a likelihood of reduction of rainfall activities over the north than over the central and southern parts of the country, as we now see from the forecast. In the morning, we expect to see cloudy conditions over the extreme northern parts of the country with chances of localized thunderstorms over the Mambila Plateau areas. There are also chances of localized thunderstorms over the central parts of the country, Yelwa axis, and the inland cities of the south. We expect to see some rains along the coastal areas And as we move into the afternoon and evening hours, we expect the cloudiness over the north to develop and produce thunderstorms over this region. The central parts of the country and the inland cities are also likely to watch out for some localized thunderstorms, while Lagos is likely to remain cloudy. Please stand by now for our maximum temperature forecast.
And that's our package on Good Morning Nigeria for today. It's been an explosive edition of the program. Join us again tomorrow.
My name is Kingsley Osadola. Of course, my colleague is Kirian Umayo. Thank you for being with us on the program. We're back 7 o'clock in the morning. We'll have a nice day.